Welcome along to Get Stuck In. It is the 1st of March, means we're officially allowed to talk about the Cheltenham Festival, and with that in mind we're going to concentrate on the feature race, the Boodles Cheltenham Gold Cup. And no expense spared here at Sport and Life. We've sent our camera crew across the RAC to catch up with some leading connections. More about that in due course. These two lads to my left will be very, very excited, annoyingly excited.
Yeah, massively. A couple of days ago I still viewed it as something that was in the distance, but I had a proper look over the weekend. I'm thoroughly in the zone now. Can't wait for it.
Martin?
It takes me probably until the Sunday when the final decks come through for the first day to properly sort of get it, right into it and really, really looking forward to it. But it is around the corner. The final pieces of the jigsaws have been put in place for most of the horses, at least with Cheltenham ideas of going there.
The feature is, as I said, the Boodles Cheltenham Gold Cup, and the favoured is Galopin Des Champs. He's trained by Willie Mullins, and I say we sent the camera crew over earlier to catch up with him.
You've won the Gold Cup in the past. How does he stack up with the rest of your past winners of it?
Yeah, this guy probably has more speed than the ones than Album, and similar type of horse, French bred, same colour, but I think probably has a little bit more speed than Album, but we know Album stayed all day, so this fella's got to prove that yet, but every chance he could. I think you think that's enough, isn't it? Well done.
Good to hear from Willie Mullins. He's also got Stattler, and Patrick, his son and assistant, had a few words to say about him.
So you've ridden multiple winners at Cheltenham, Billaway last year being your final one, of course, when you won that dramatic finish, but to go last year, the festival, live chance in the Gold Cup must mean a lot.
Yeah, sure, look, it is. That's the dream. I've been looking at riding a few of them on his own, and Jack and I got some great spins. Jack and I gave me a brilliant spin one year, and behind Native River. And look, it's the dream. I mean, it's at the moment we're in a very great time in Ireland. I know Rachel Blackmore, I know Paul Townend, they've won Gold Cups, and I suppose you're thinking, sure, if they can, why can't I? So yeah, it's we're going there with living the dream.
Yeah, best of luck to Patrick Mullins on a big ride on Stattler, or is he a big ride? We'll find out in the lads' thoughts in due course. But 6-4 Galopin Des Champs, he's tight, isn't he?
He is. That's the only problem I would have with him, really, is his price. There's no question he's got some of the best form in the race. There's no question in my mind he's the most progressive horse in the Gold Cup field this year, and he's still open to plenty of improvement. Whether he deserves to be sort of 6-4, 13-8 on what he's actually done so far, if he's that far ahead, I think is debatable. And his price will probably, if anything, get a little bit bigger, I think, between now and actual race time. I can't see him really shortening up into sort of even money and odds on the day, in my opinion. I think other horses will more than likely shorten. He'll maybe stay stagnant or even drift a little bit on the day. But you take lots of positives from the Irish Gold Cup, mainly how he settled, how he relaxed and how he saw out his race, and all of that pointing to him being effective, I think, over the longer trip.
With or against Galopin?
Yeah, I am against it, the price. I just can't get excited at this point 2 weeks in advance saying, yeah, let's get some money in the bank at 6-4 on Gold Cup day. Something could happen between now and then for one thing, but it's not like it's a race without dangers. And he did prove himself to some extent. He saw his race out strongly at the Dublin Racing Festival, but it's still the question over the extra couple of furlongs.
Stattler, is he a chance for Patrick Mullins?
I'm not as big a fan as Dan, and Dan will talk about him in a minute. I just think he's probably more of a stayer. I think his chance would increase if it happened to become a soft ground.
Yeah, a slugger's Gold Cup.
A real slugger's Gold Cup and real outright stamina test. I'm not sure that it looks like it's going to be that at this stage, so I can see him just getting done for a bit of pace really through the middle of the race and maybe getting outclassed essentially by slightly better horses. I can see him running okay, but I think he won't have the pace really to to live with some of the best horses in the field unless it comes up very soft.
Yeah, I'd be more hopeful if the ground was testing, but I still think he's got realistic place claims, because I think you go beyond however many first 3 or 4 in the betting. I don't think it's extremely deep, and he is a horse who's been to the festival and done it. He won a national hunt chase. I know it was a boring race, as we all said at the time, but it was a routine success. I do think if he'd have landed running at 3 out, he'd have got a bit closer to Galopin Des Champs, and it's 8 lengths, and he saw his race out well enough to get back into second, and that is the equivalent of a couple of mistakes, or Galopin Des Champs getting taken on for the lead perhaps, or not getting home in what could be a strongly run race. I think people will be mindful of that. The potential hole is that he doesn't want the extra distance to favourite, and I think others will ride with that in mind and try and stretch him.
Yeah. Last year, Plutarch was a fantastic winner off it. Things haven't gone right for him. This time, obviously, pulled up at Hewick, was withdrawn by vets at Leopardstown at Christmas. But you've got him in Chiefly Park colours, Manhillo Endo and Protectorate, lads. The first three all seem to be going back.
Yeah, this was just sensational, wasn't it? It was fantasy stuff. To see a horse take the second last, still 3 or 4 lengths down and working for room, to suddenly burst into the front. And then it's one thing having making the effort to get there, but then to have enough left to stride right away as he did was top draw stuff. This for me is the single best piece of form any of these horses can boast. Yes, Manila Indo didn't get home, but he still thrashed a wide margin Betfair Chase winner in Protectorate, who, go back to that Betfair Chase, and a Plutarch was 2s on to beat that horse. And obviously we have doubts about him now because he blew out so badly and we haven't seen him since, but that for me is the best piece of form in the race.
Yeah, I'd definitely agree with that. I think if he's at that level, he's the horse to beat. But it's how much you forgive and what price you're willing to take on that, I suppose. If you knew that he was in that sort of form, he'd be vying for favouritism, if not being favourite. But obviously last year he had a perfect preparation into the Gold Cup pretty much, and right the way through the season sailed his way through it. This year has been far from ideal at every aspect, at every point really.
I think he's one of those that, when we were discussing this race a few weeks ago in Dispatches, at no stage then did I want to be taking 6s or 7s or 8s about him, because we didn't have a clue how do you price up a horse like that. But if he makes it, I think if you're playing that race on the day, you're almost beholden. You've got to keep him on side to some extent, because the possibility that he gets back to that level of form.
Gigginstown House Stud and Gordon Elliott won it a few years ago with Don Cossack. They've got Conflated in the race this year, and once again we sent the cameras to catch up with the trainer.
Gordon Conflated, he looks in good form with himself here this morning. How's it been since your
He's well, Fran. Yeah, he's in good form. So he's come out of the race very well. He runs well, fresh. So we said we go straight to the Gold Cup now. But he's in good nick now. So we're very happy with him. Probably went for the wrong race last year, I feel, going for the Ryanair. But I think the step up and trip this year for the Gold Cup will really suit him. You can see he's in good out nick there. So we're looking forward to running him.
And on the Ryanair, he was actually going to finish well, it would appear, when he took that unfortunate
He was,
fall.
yeah. I think he'd have been second, you know. And on last year's form, you know, I think he'd have been second in the Gold Cup last year with, you know, Galopin being bet 2.5 lengths for third. For second, sorry, but he's in good form as well. He's had a good preparation, so we're really looking forward to running him.
You've had Gold Cup winners in the past. How does it compare?
I don't know if he's Don Cossack, but we keep dreaming.
Okay, Conflated around 12-1. Yes or no?
I actually do like his chance. I think he's for me at this stage he's the overpriced one. He's sort of between 10s and 12s, those sorts of prices. I like his preparation that he's had. He's been laid out for the race this year. Gordon's made no secret of the fact that this is the race that he's been targeting at for some way out, for all that Ryanair entry has stood. And he won the Savills in December. They've decided to skip other races with him purely to focus on the Gold Cup, and I like that preparation going into the race sort of fresh with the race as a prime target. Clearly last year the Ryanair was too short for him. I thought he got outpaced going down the back straight and he got himself a little bit detached, but he was running a big race in second when he came down behind Allaho. And look at the way that he dealt with Kemboy and Fury Road, two of the horses that Galopin Des Champs has been beating as well, and he dealt with them in a similar manner to what Galopin Des Champs has done this season. So, you know, I don't think it's far-fetched to suggest his form is right up there. He's won 2 Grade 1s in Ireland over the last 12 months, and I think, you know, he does have realistic chances of at least placing in a Gold Cup, and I do think he'll go there in top form.
I was speaking to Gordon last night about him, mentality training, because they had an awful lot of trouble with him as a young horse, an awful lot of trouble, and he's mentally getting there. Even last year in the Ryanair, I suppose the thing is, like Cheltenham Gold Cup day, he has to keep a lid on that, but Leopardstown is busy, whatever, so I think he's mentally better now than he was, he certainly was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so. and that's another point with him. You don't look, obviously you look at Galopin Des Champs' profile and other horses and think that they are very progressive.
Yeah.
Conflated is similarly progressive, really. And his profile over the last 15 months has certainly been that way since they've got his mind right, I think, and that has been clear with his performances on the track more consistently. I
think it's a good Gold Cup. Just going down through them, I think Galopin Des Champs will be a good winner, Plutar a good winner, Bravemansgame and Noble Yeats, if they won, I think they'll be good winners of the race.
Yeah, because they'll be beating other horses that are established already as top class, and it's probably on the time form scale. I bet there's 6 of them in the field already who would be in that bracket. Horses who've already run to these really lofty ratings, 170 plus, figures like that. And Galopin Des Champs, like we said, is the up-and-comer. But you've got horses like Conflated and my fancy Stattler. I do think conditions sort of dictate to some extent. Conflated won't want any worse in the ground or overwatering, because he might just be one of those Silvinaco Conti types who's a pure 3-miler and doesn't want the extra distance. Whereas, as we discussed briefly with Stattler, he's one who conditions will dictate the other way. I want wetter ground for him so he can bring his stamina into play.
Noble Yeats, Emmett Mullins, he doesn't do things by the book. He's doing the horse to win a Grand National, coming back to the run in a Gold Cup.
Yeah, I mean, the Cotswold was the race that he ran in last time. He was crying out for the cheap pieces to go on. Emmett has confirmed pretty much this week that the headgear will be going back on for the Gold Cup. That's no surprise. The one final thing I would say is that those form lines for me, Ahoyce and Yo, Noble Yeats, Protectorat, sounds Russian. For me, they're not good enough. I just don't rate the form. They're all tied in together, and I think when you've got a Gold Cup with horses like you've mentioned with Galopin and A Plutard and maybe Conflated to some extent, that have that higher level form already in the book, I think that is much superior to what those horses bring to the table from such as the Many Clouds and the Cotswold Chase, etc.
On to the real big guns then. Bravemansgame goes in the Cheltenham Gold Cup. There was a time when I suppose the King George winner was almost by default made favourite for the Cheltenham Gold Cup. Not necessarily the case anymore, much to do with the strength in depth over in Ireland, and seemingly some people still need convincing that this horse wants 3 miles 2 furlongs at Cheltenham. Have you got any doubts about him handling at Prestbury Park?
Look, he ran very well in the Ballymore 2 years ago. He doesn't mind what track he runs on. The 3¼ miles, until they do that, you don't know. And the favourite's the same, really, in a lot of ways. And, I remember when Corto won the King George, everyone had the same thing, will he stay 3¼ miles at Cheltenham? To be honest, you don't know till you get there, but I don't see why he won't. To me, he stayed on very strong at Kempton, and you've got to stay to win that race.
And you've had some tremendous jumpers through this year. The likes of Mastermind, the way he gets from one side of a fence to another. Has he always been a natural Bravemansgame?
Yeah, brilliant. And that's a big plus in a race like the Gold Cup, because you want to travel and jump and not waste any energy by making mistakes, and that's a big asset as well.
Now, the rain came obviously last year, and he had to skip the festival altogether. What do you see as his sort of perfect ground for this spring?
I don't think he worries too much. He doesn't want extreme, so I don't think he'd want it too deep. I don't think he'd want it too quick. Good to soft ground would be perfect. Quite often the Gold Cup that track is kept for the only race on it once, really, and it's usually decent ground, so that should be ideal.
And there's an obvious big danger at the top of the market, Galopin Des Champs. Do you see this as a real competitive Gold Cup?
It is. Any Gold Cup's very hard to beat. You've got the best of the best in it, and it'll be a hard race to win.
We haven't mentioned Bravemansgame. He's got the right postcode.
He has, and he did make me think at Kempton that he's a changed horse, definitely, because he had to come off the bridle to go and win his race, and he really poured it on from that point and saw off L'Empresse, and I suppose that was the most taking aspect of the King George win. He had a wide trip round, but he found an awful lot off the bridle, so he's obviously a bigger, stronger, more powerful, robust horse now than the last time that he visited Cheltenham a couple of years ago.
I still want to see him go and do it. Obviously, we won't get to see that until the day, but seen so many of those horses down the years win King Georges and not be able to translate it to Gold Cups because of the different examination. And there was an element to me, I mean, L'Empresse ends up falling at last, but he jumped left throughout, and he'd probably done plenty up with the pace as well. I do think that was a perfect storm for him to run to a big figure. He'll probably go back next year and win the King George as well, but as it stands, I just don't see him as a Gold Cup winner.
If there's going to be a really good story, it'd be Hewick, wouldn't it? Shark Hanlon, what he's done already, coming through the handicap ranks, going to America, conquering that, and he's back for more. He's going to try to win the Cheltenham Gold Cup. Here's his trainer.
You've had winners at Cheltenham in the past at a November meeting, but to go there with a live chance in a Gold Cup.
Listen, we never have too many for Cheltenham because we're not up in that class. But we had winners in Clondalk Warrior won for us, and but to have a winner there. Hidden Cyclone was placed in the Ryanair, was second in the Ryanair, but I'd love to have one winner in Cheltenham. You know, it keeps the whole thing afloat, so it does. But and maybe this will do it. I don't know.
How do you assess the field this year?
How do I assess the field? I think Willie's horse is too short. No, he's a very good horse.
Galopin Des Champs.
Galopin Des Champs is a very good horse, but I just don't think he's a 6-4 shot. Like it took him all day to pass a 4-mile horse in Leopardstown the last day. Now he went away from him after he passed him, but I don't think he should be as short as he is. And there's about 5 or 6 horses then that are all the one. You know, if you took, if I'd say if Willie's horse came out of the race tomorrow morning, to go off 6 to 1 the field, you know, or 7 to 1 the field, because there's nothing else sticking out a mile in it, and there's a lot of horses with chances the same as him, you know. But we know about him anyway. Listen, there's one thing we know about him is he'll stay up the hill.
Yeah.
And he has enough pace after winning the Galway Plate. He has enough pace to carry him. So whatever happens then after that.
And the dry forecast, you're hoping it's dry all the week?
Oh Jesus, I don't want any rain. I don't want any rain. That's the last thing in the world I want is rain. He's a good ground horse, and probably, like, if we ended up that we got a downpour, I'd definitely have to think about not running them because Liverpool is only a month later or 5 weeks later. So that's the only thing that had stopped me from running them. Hopefully that he stays sound and safe and sound. But he's a different horse on good ground. Without he's a different horse on good ground. Don't fall asleep there, boy.
Never short of a word. Good luck to him. It's been some story so far. I'll see if there's another chapter or 2 left in the Hewick book. Right, summing up, what wins the Gold Cup?
Well, I'm hoping Conflated. Each way would be my bet in the race at the moment. I think he'll run a good, solid race. I do think he'll stay the trip, and he's got a bit of class and still open to a bit more improvement, in my opinion, anyway, although he's had a lot of racing. I think that there could be another bigger day in him.
Well, I think I'd wait for him now rather than back him now to make sure he's declared. But I've got to keep Blue Tard on side based on what he did 12 months ago. But my main view is one that's been set in stone for a while. I back Stattler each way on the back of the Irish Gold Cup, and I'm a bit pot committed there.
Okay, that's a look at the Boodles Cheltenham Gold Cup. Closer to home, we're going to look at something for the weekend very shortly. Okay, it's been busy the last couple of weeks. Plenty of action on the race course. The lads have hopefully got a horse to keep on the right side of.
Yeah, Baby Sage for me. Won at Warwick last Friday, a mare of Alan King's, really well bred. She's by Flemonsfirth out of Baby Shine.
Last of Flemons first, she'll be.
Yeah. And out of a mare, was a terrific race mare. She won by 9 lengths in her bumper. She ran a little bit green, but she stormed away in the final 100 yards. It was a good performance. She looks I only saw her on the TV pictures, but she looks a good looker. And I think they'll have their eyes on one of the valuable...
Entry bumper, probably?
Maybe entry bumper, yeah, that Grade 2 mare's bumper at entry in a few weeks' time.
Okay, Baby Sage for you, Alan King.
The Albert Bartlett trial at Haydock, obviously been in the
Prestige,
headlines for the wrong reasons because of what happened to the jockey on the winner, Lorcan Williams. But I thought there was a lot to take from the performance of the third, the King of Rye Hope. Also, I believe you knew the fella, your pals with the fella who had him in his point to point. I just thought he didn't get to the bottom of him. He got trapped on the inside at the time when he wanted to run, when the race was developing. He's still young. He still had only 3 starts. That was a big step up in grade, but he did not look out of place. And I think he's got EBF final written all over him if that's the route they want to take, but maybe they have even higher aspirations based on the fact they tried him at graded level so soon.
Okay, there's a couple of horses hopefully to keep on the right side of. Racing Newbury, Kelso, Doncaster. It's not bad actually. People are dismissing it. I'm looking forward to this weekend. And the flat gets going a little bit. Good all-weather card. So horse racing fans I think are well enough catered for, despite the Cluke's proximity to Cheltenham. What are you going for?
I'm going for Santos Blues, entered in the 3 o'clock at Kelso. Firms have already priced up.
Skelton's.
Yeah, Captain Obvious. He's on a hat-trick, but he's won like a horse who's got bundles in hand of his marks. Street clear at Chepstow. The horse we beat, No Tonics, finished a clear second since, running to a higher level. There's a chance that Rafferty's return could try and nick the race from the front. I really like him, put him up as a horse for at the start of the season, but I hope actually he just sets it up for Santos Blue.
Santos Blue. Kelso for young Ben Sutton, whose family own him.
Yeah, and I'm sticking with the Skeltons as well up at Kelso. Loda Sud in the more battle hurdle valuable race. He's a young horse that they got from France earlier on in the season. He's come over, had a couple of starts. I think he does want 2 miles. I think he wants a sharp 2 miles as well. He ran really well at Kempton last time we saw him. He's had a couple of months since then, and he was a sort of weak horse when I saw him a little bit in the autumn at Haydock. I think he'll have strengthened up a little bit for a little bit more time and a bit of a time between runs as well. And I can see the sharp 2 miles at Kelso on ground that's going to be relatively quick. I think that'll be a perfect test for Loda Sud in the Moor Battle.
There you go. Couple of winners. The calm before the storm. We'll be back next week to talk all things Cheltenham, Cheltenham, Cheltenham and Cheltenham. In the meantime, we'll see you soon. Look after yourselves. Bye-bye.